All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are tackling something huge, something that's literally right above our heads every single night, the moon. We're going to unpack some pretty wild ideas that suggest it is way, way more than just a big rock floating in space. So, where do we even begin with a topic this big? Well, our journey starts with a really personal story. It's about this guy from someone's childhood. And whenever the full moon was out, his own personal troubles just seemed to amplify. You know, it was one of those local legends about lunar madness. And honestly, it sounds familiar, right? I think we've all heard stories like that.
And that's the thing. This observation isn't unique at all. I mean, for literally centuries, across all kinds of cultures, people have looked up at the moon and connected it to, well, strange behavior, to things getting more intense. This link between us and the moon, it runs deep. And you want to know how deep it goes? It is baked right into our language. Just think about the word lunatic. Where do you think that comes from? Luna, the Latin word for the moon. It's not just some random word. It's like a fossil, a piece of ancient history telling us that people genuinely believed the moon could affect your mind.
Okay, so maybe today we're not talking about werewolves running around, but let's be real. How many of us have felt it, that full moon energy? People still say they feel the moon's pull. Like this emotional tide. You feel a little more on edge, a bit more sensitive, like something is getting stirred up right under the surface. So this is where it gets really interesting. This feeling so many of us have, it leads to a much deeper, much more unsettling question. What if this isn't just a quirk of biology? What if something is deliberately using the moon to influence us? And that question? Well, that's what we're about to dive into. Enter the philosopher George Gurdjieff. Now, he didn't just think the moon had an effect on us. Oh no, he offered a shocking and very literal explanation for why. He called his theory food for the moon, and yeah, it's as literal as it sounds. He claimed that all of us, when we're just running on autopilot, living unconsciously, we are basically food. All that raw, chaotic energy from our negative emotions, our anger, our fear, all that suffering, he believed it's literally being harvested to feed the moon, which he described as a kind of planet in the making. So according to Gurdjieff, when you're just reacting to things all day, not really thinking, those actions aren't even truly yours. He saw the moon as a giant puppeteer, and we're the puppets, with our mechanical, unconscious nature being the strings it pulls. So what he's really laying out here are two different ways to exist. On one hand, you can be the mechanical human, the puppet, right? Just reacting unconsciously and feeding this whole system. Or you can become the conscious human, someone who, through a ton of self-awareness, basically learns to cut those puppet strings and hold onto their own energy. Okay, so if Gurdjieff is right, and we're the food, that begs a pretty massive question, doesn't it? Who set the dinner table? Was this all just a bizarre cosmic accident, or did someone or something design this system on purpose? Well, this is where we bring in David Icke. For him, the answer is a huge yes. Someone did design it. And let me tell you, his theory takes this whole thing and blows it wide open. We're not just talking about the moon anymore. We're talking about Saturn, interdimensional beings, and a completely hijacked reality. So to get Icke's theory, you have to start with this basic idea: the universe is all about vibration. What we see and hear and touch is just one frequency, kind of like a radio tuned to a single station. But Icke claims there are countless other stations broadcasting all around us. And on one of those other frequencies, there's a race of beings he calls the Archons. And here's how they allegedly control things. It starts with a signal broadcast from Saturn, from that weird hexagonal storm specifically. That signal gets beamed to the moon, which acts like a giant amplifier or a supercomputer. Then the moon broadcasts that signal out, creating what he calls a firewall around our perception, locking us into just our five senses. The result? We're stuck in this holographic dream world, generating all this low vibration energy like fear, which the Archons then feed on. So you can see how important the moon is in this theory. The idea that it's an artificial construct, it's the linchpin. So you gotta ask, what on earth makes them think that? What's the so-called evidence for a claim that big? Well, let's take a look. Okay, so the people who subscribe to these ideas, they aren't just pulling it out of thin air. They point to a whole list of things, scientific oddities, ancient myths, that they claim are clues. Clues that the moon isn't natural, but that it was put there.
So what are we talking about here? Well, for one, you've got these ancient stories from all over the world that talk about a time before the moon was in the sky. Then there's the solar eclipse. I mean, the fact that the moon is the exact right size and distance to perfectly block out the sun, that's a wild coincidence. And then you get into the physical stuff. The moon is way less dense than it should be, which has led people to wonder if it's hollow. Plus, its biggest craters are weirdly shallow, almost like something hard under the surface stopped the impact. But the biggest piece of evidence, the one everyone talks about, didn't come from some old myth. It came straight from NASA. Back in 1969, during the Apollo 12 mission, they decided to crash part of the lunar module into the moon's surface to see what would happen on their seismic equipment. And what happened? Well, it shocked them. The official NASA report said the moon rang like a bell for almost an hour. Now, the scientific explanation is pretty straightforward. The moon is super dry and rigid, so there's nothing to absorb the vibrations like there is on Earth. But for the theorists, no way. For them, rang like a bell meant one thing. The moon is a hollow, artificial sphere. The ultimate proof. Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that some of this is true. Are we just stuck, doomed to be cosmic batteries forever? Well, according to the very same people who came up with these theories, the answer is absolutely not.
And the way out isn't what you might think. We're not talking about some kind of space battle or anything like that. The solution is an inside job. It's a revolution of consciousness. What's really fascinating is that whether you're looking at Gurdjieff or Ike, the proposed solution is basically the same. It all comes down to mastering your inner world. You have to stop feeding the system with all that negative energy. You have to become self-aware enough to stop reacting on autopilot, and you have to consciously choose emotions like love instead of fear. You have to, as they say, raise your vibration.
And this brings us to a really cool paradox in all of this. The moon, in this view, isn't just a prison. It's also a gym for the soul. Its influence is constantly pushing on us, showing us where we're weak, where we're reactive. It basically gives us a giant "you are here" sign on the map of our own spiritual development, showing us exactly what we need to overcome.
So that's where we land, with this one huge, lingering question. Is the moon what we've always been told it is, just a beautiful, silent rock accompanying us through space? Or is it something else? A control system so massive, so clever that it's been hiding in plain sight this whole time? That's something to think about next time you look up.